morning. Welcome to Breakfast Central. It's the middle of the week and we're counting down to the end of the month, even as we prepare excitedly, maybe for some not so exciting, for the month of April. I'm Olive Emodi and you're welcome to Breakfast Central.
And I am Osarogie, Ogbonmwan. Thank you for joining us. And as always, we have the next 2 hours to have some of the major conversations happening in Nigeria this morning and bits and pieces in other parts of the continent. We hope that you can also be a part of it. Simply tweet at us this morning at News Central TV or call our phone lines when they, of course, are available for you. We also have Dashin Usman joining us to share with us breakfast headlines. Good morning, Dashin.
Good morning, Osarogie. It's nice to be here. How are you doing? Hi, Olive.
Hello, Dashin. Good to have you here.
Good to be here.
Well, we're counting down to the end of the month. Excited about April, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm wondering what will be the biggest turnaround you're looking forward to seeing in the month of April?
In the month of April, well,
I already know off the top of my head that the biggest turnaround I will be looking forward to seeing in Nigeria is the miraculous crashing of the dollar.
Oh, yeah. I think everyone actually looks forward to that. But, you know, the good thing is that I think as of, was it yesterday or day before yesterday, a dollar to a naira is about 1,300 and something. I don't know. We just hope that it would actually crush, you know, further so that, but then a lot of Nigerians are complaining that the fact that it has actually crashed does not translate when you go to markets. You go and, you know, market prices have actually remained the same, if not even added, if not even more. And I don't understand the mathematics behind this. You know, the dollar keeps coming, the naira to dollar keeps coming down, it keeps crashing, but then prices of goods, prices of products in the market, in supermarkets, retail and wholesale keeps going up.
Yeah. I mean, in Nigeria, what goes up doesn't come down.
No, it should come down. It should better come down.
You know, what we do, and it's a thing that we have told ourselves, you know, is that how easily we adapt, which, you know, turns out to be a blessing and a curse at the same time. Because, you know, once Nigerians get used to a certain level of, you know, pain, they adapt, you know, and they get used to it. So, you know, you're talking about prices of goods and services, foodstuff, petrol, and healthcare, everything.
But even
gets to a certain level.
Even petrol
Yeah,
is actually reduced
I was going to
by
say
10
that.
naira, yeah?
Yeah, I was going to say that there are two reasons, you know, I believe that the price of goods and services have increased. It's the dollar price and, of course, the price of petrol. Petrol hasn't really reduced. It's pretty much the same thing.
Really? There's no really inside. Petrol hasn't reduced.
Well, you know, I saw a story about it dropping 10 naira a couple of days ago.
No, that's not reduction.
Yeah,
I mean, a year ago from today, we're buying petrol. This is March. A year ago, we're buying petrol at 185. How are we buying petrol in the 600s? And I don't even know how we're coping. Yeah. Yesterday, I went to buy gas, and the reality of it hit me. 12 kg was 16,400. I couldn't believe my eyes.
Yeah, that's it. Anyway, I'm not expecting, you know, just like you've said, you know, it might be wishful thinking to expect prices to really drop. Nigerians are dealing with a really, really expensive cost of living and just the most basic things, food and water and healthcare, really expensive for the average Nigerian. We hope, even if it's not realistic, but we hope that, you know, some of these things come down pretty soon. Let's show our viewers this morning what our top stories are, and then we'll have you join us for breakfast headlines.
Hello and welcome to Breakfast Headlines. I'm Dashin Usman. Now the news begins in West Africa, where the burial ceremony of 17 army personnel killed in Okuama Community, Delta State, southern Nigeria, has been scheduled for today. Army spokesperson Major General Onyema Nwachukwu, in a statement, said President Bola Tinubu would be the special guest of honor at the event. He said the remains of the personnel would be laid to rest at about 3 p.m. at the National Cemetery in Abuja. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Army has released over 300 individuals who have been detained at Giwa Barracks in Borno State for suspected links with Boko Haram insurgents. The suspects were cleared of any connection to Boko Haram after years of investigation. The military is said to have handed over the detainees, including men, women, and children in Borno State, to the Borno State government for proper reintegration into society. The Central Bank of Nigeria has increased the monetary policy rate by 200 basis points to 24.75% from 22.75% to address escalating inflation. Now, Governor Olayemi Cardoso announced the decision at the 294th meeting of the Monetary Policy Committee press briefing in Abuja, which marks a 2% surge from the previous rate set a month earlier, constituting the second hike under the current committee's tenure. And now let's head to politics, where the leadership of the Labour Party says it will not rescind the decision to hold its contentious national convention today as planned. The development comes 2 days after the party formally petitioned relevant government institutions requesting an urgent intervention to protect the party against further aggression from the Nigeria Labour Congress. A day after anti-system newcomer Bassirou Diomaye Faye swept to a first-round victory, people in Senegal's capital, Dakar, say they want radical change after years of deadly unrest, economic stagnation, and a political crisis that has 1 in 3 of the country's roughly 17 million inhabitants living in poverty. Faye's main rival, the governing coalition's Amadou Ba, conceded defeat after failing to woo voters on a promise of continuing the status quo. Now, following Togolese lawmakers' adoption of a new constitution that will see the West African country shift from a presidential to a parliamentary system of governance, executive power will rest with the Prime Minister, reducing the presidency to a symbolic role. Under the new system, the president will be selected by Parliament for a single 6-year term rather than being voted by the public. Now let's head to South Africa, where hundreds of supporters in the African nation, that's the South African opposition Umkhonto weSizwe MK party, which is backed by scandal-tainted ex-president Jacob Zuma, celebrated on the streets in Johannesburg after an electoral court in the city ruled that the party can stand in the May 29th general election. The court rejected a complaint by the ruling African National Congress, Zuma's former party, which said MK's name and symbol were so similar to those of the now disbanded military wing of ANC that this could deceive or confuse voters. Now that's all on breakfast headlines. It's back to you, Osarogie.
Thank you very much. Interesting story that you shared, about the 300 persons who were initially arrested, but, will now be released back into society after investigations and, of course, finding that they didn't have links to Boko Haram, which, of course, should be good news for them and their families, but it once again calls for a cleanup, of the criminal justice, system in Nigeria. It shouldn't take that long to carry out investigation of these many people, even if there's those who criticize the government for, of course, releasing Boko Haram, criminals in the past. But this story, says that these people didn't have necessary links to the terrorist group, and so they would be released. I'm saying it shouldn't take this long. These people have lost valuable time in their lives. What do you mean by reintegrating them back into society? What does that mean in Nigerian context? What society really are they going to be really integrated back into? So it's unfair, to these ones. If they, now that the government has declared them innocent, it's unfair to them in every single way.
Well, when it actually comes to reintegrating people back into society, it actually entails a lot of things. For example, those who were terrorists, they'd have to undergo so many decluttering of the already brainwashed minds. So what do they actually mean when they say reintegrating these people into society? Well, we know how slow the Nigerian criminal system or justice system can actually be, and they're actually quite a number. But the fact that they've been let go and they've been cleared of all charges is actually the most important thing. So hopefully, when they go back to society, they'll be better for whatever they were accused of doing in the first place.
Yeah, I'm just saying it shouldn't take that long. These are, I believe, from the reports.
Nigeria still has a long way to go. So when it comes to that,
say that again.
I said Nigeria still has a long way to go when it comes.
Yeah. How do you have 300 people, held in captivity that long? while we're still complaining about decongesting the Nigerian prison system in the first place. And then, what happens to them now? How much time have they lost in their lives? Can they still get jobs? Did they have jobs before in the first place? There's just so much that is wrong with it. But baby steps, I guess. Thanks for sharing those stories. We'll see you again at 9.
Thank you.
Welcome again. Now, in a bid to boost local production and stimulate the economy, the federal government is considering banning the importation of medical syringes. The Minister of State for Health, Dr. Tunji Alausa, says the government is committed to supporting local industries while urging NAFDAC to halt the issuance of import authorization for syringes, stressing the importance of protecting local industries from unfair competition.
The minister said that the goal is to shift the focus towards supporting domestic syringe manufacturing. You would recall that Jubilee Syringe Manufacturing Limited, JSM, in Akwa Ibom State, was set to shut down operations early this year before it announced restructuring its current business framework. Why hasn't Nigeria gotten its own manufacturing unit? Joining us this morning to discuss this is the CEO of FEM Diagnostic and Medical Services, Dr. Dolamu Jawando. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, looking at Nigeria's healthcare, medical space, and the healthcare system in Nigeria, do you think that this is a very important move to make, and is this also a right time to make this move?
Good morning again. I don't think there's a better time than now for us to backwardly integrate manufacturing in healthcare. This will go a very long way in reducing the challenges that we currently face. So I think this investment and this commissioning at this time is timely and is good response to the yearnings of the Nigerian healthcare sector.
Let's first of all even go back to the whole how is it possible that Nigeria can't even make syringes? Where what exactly are we lacking? That makes us import syringes.
Consistent government policies is what we are lacking. Because it might also interest you to know that between 2013 and now, we have commissioned about 8 injectables manufacturing plants, across the country. In 2013, we launched the International Integrated Medical Company under the Pan-African Health Foundation in Rivers State. That was launched, that was commissioned, and that was novel because that was even producing disposable needle and syringe, non-reusable, which was also reducing chances of infections, because if needles are being used multiply, they can transmit infections. So we're having needles that were just for one use, and after that is also disabled. So we're manufacturing that in Nigeria. And just like you said in your intro, Jubilee 2 was launched. That was an investment of about $25 million in 2017. And it was sad for us to wake up to hear that they were actually leaving the country. But the question we need to ask ourselves again is that when one company is leaving, why is another company commissioning? Why is another company coming up? So this tells you that if you look at the numbers, it's always better for us to produce locally. So we are currently producing needles and syringes in Nigeria, but not in the right quantity.
That's another thing I wanted to ask you. And I am totally in support of us pushing homegrown remedies for homegrown problems. But right now, with what we have and the reality of what is on ground, can what we're producing be able to meet up with the demand, or do we have enough demand to match the production, whichever way? So do we have enough production to match the demand and vice versa?
We don't have enough supply to meet the demand at this time because the production is still in phases. For instance, the Afri-Medical that was commissioned by the Honorable Minister a few days ago has the capacity to deploy about 1.8 billion needles annually. And the Nigerian syringe and needle expectation use is about 1.5 million needles and syringes every day. Because, needles are used across different strata in the healthcare sector, from taking blood samples for investigations, from using it to transfuse drugs into patients, also from using it to give injections to patients, also from using it to perform other procedures in surgery. So there are multiple uses of needles and syringes. So we don't have enough to meet the demand. Having said that, if we have an industry that was commissioned that has the capacity to generate, to produce about 1.8 billion, our annual use will come to about 600 million needles. So not only would we have enough for local use, we would also have to be able to export.
Yeah, I mean, you've spoken about government, being intentional about it, and of course, investments that are necessary. But, there could also be the arguments that you may not even need, to go that far, with simple healthcare infrastructure, being on a certain level. These things, could easily be produced. The people would even argue that even universities, research laboratories, should be able to have little investments here and there where these things are produced. So, is that also, one of the challenges, that we don't even have the most basic infrastructure that would support, that level of, local production?
I wouldn't say we don't have. We have to a certain extent. What I would say is that it is not adequate, because we also need to congratulate ourselves in the areas that we have been able to make investments. Let me circle back to 2020 when the COVID broke. Some of us were on the front lines at that time, and I did realize painfully that in the management of COVID, only two things that we were using were local. And the only two things that were local in the whole chain for the COVID management was the doctor and the patient. Every other thing used in the treatment of COVID, in the diagnosis of COVID, were all imported. And that was why we're globally waiting for anesthesia machines from all over the world to come into Nigeria.
And so that includes face masks.
And even face masks, yes. And but today we now have companies manufacturing face masks in Nigeria in multiple quantities. We now have companies in Nigeria manufacturing hand sanitizers in multiple quantities. And so we're now having another company making a launch into the injection and needle and syringe market. So I think this is quite encouraging. This is not to talk about the other manufacturing and assembly plants for diagnostic machines and also local fabrication of machines. So these things are going on. So what we need are policies that are consistent. I like the fact that you mentioned the universities are supposed to be able to do this. Policies drive these things in universities. It's not just easy for us to say the university should do this. How much funding is the university getting? How much investment is it getting in terms of research and development? How much acceptability do we have as a people to locally manufactured goods? These are the things that we have to look at.
It's one thing for this to be said. It's one thing for the government to say we intend to do this. We're going to stop we're going to stop importation so that we can push local manufacturing. But another thing is the practicality of it in the shortest possible time. So, how soon do you see this happening? And I'm asking this as well because we've seen a number of big pharmaceutical giants leaving the country because running a business in Nigeria is not an easy feat, especially in these days. So what's the practicality of this going to look like, and in what time frame do you see this happening?
Like I said, let's pick the last company that was commissioned a few days ago. It has the capacity to produce 1.8 billion needles annually. Now, that company is going to have the same challenges that every Nigerian company has. It's going to have the challenge of power, the challenge of electricity, for instance. How does the government want to assist this company? How does the government want to support this person? How does the government want to support this endeavor to be able to make it a lesser burden on the manufacturer? At least if we look at the multiple advantages of local production, this would go a long way. So that's what I was talking about. It's about the passion and the drive and the consistency with local manufacturing. This would go a long way in helping us. So it's not just for one person. It's all hands have to be on deck for us to produce more of the things we need.
I'm hoping that we have, a health ministry that, I've been talking about KPIs lately. So I'm hoping that we have a health ministry that also sets some of all these things as its KPIs. We want to see that in the next 2 years, we've moved from this level, and this is where we are now. This is where we look to be in 2027. Those type of conversations are what I think we should have. And of course, it should include things beyond syringes. So from your perspective, what else do you think that, Nigeria's health, industry maybe also needs this level of attention, into with regards to production? What else do you think we should completely stop importing? We can absolutely produce here that the primary healthcare centers and the healthcare space, desperately needs more of.
It might surprise you to know that materials as simple as gloves materials as simple as condoms are still being imported into Nigeria in large quantity. These are investments that should have been made years ago because we use a lot of gloves in Nigeria and we also use a lot of latex condoms in Nigeria. So this is an area that is untapped, and this is an area where investments need to slide into to be able to ensure that we are making great progress with locally available devices. And even up to the dextrose that we use, the normal saline that we use, we're actually producing, but we're actually still importing a lot. What I think is very important is that I think AfriMedical needs to launch a foray into the companies that have come and gone before them. What were those challenges? And they have to have a clear roadmap to be able to surpass these challenges when they come up for them to be able to do great work. I like the issue of KPIs, but I think 2 years is too short. And if they're having a roadmap that can last about 20 years with proper monitoring, proper research, proper development activities going on in that space, not only would they produce needle and syringes, they would also produce a lot more byproducts. And that way, there would be a more concentration and traction into local manufacturing of consumables in Nigeria.
Yeah, I only use 2 years. I only use 2 years as an example. You definitely,
yes,
require more.
But what happens again is that most people set up companies and have a 2-year plan for a break even. It doesn't work like that in real life. It doesn't work like that even in this particular economy, whereby we're all on learning, relearning, and learning new things on how to survive in this economy. So the same thing has to be put into infrastructure for healthcare as well.
All right, even as we talk about the exit of certain big pharmaceuticals, the brain drain is something that cannot be overflogged because it's the reality that the Nigeria's healthcare sector has to deal with every day. I want you to give us a picture of how this has impacted the health sector. Because when we talk about it, people every day we're talking about people jackpying, right? But give us a picture of what it looks like for Nigeria's healthcare sector.
All right, so I work in the diagnostic sector, and I got a call from a patient who does their annual medicals with us yesterday and said, what is happening? I was at one of your branches. I'm seeing new people at the front desk. I'm seeing new people in the phlebotomy. I'm seeing new people in the customer care. Is the jackpot syndrome also affecting you? It's affecting each and every one of us. It's affecting both the junior and the senior doctors in Nigeria. It's affecting in fact, when we talk about the 5 M's of management, we talk about manpower. So if manpower is deflated, if manpower is reduced, if manpower is overstretched, if manpower is overwhelmed, it will be very difficult for the other 4 factors of management to be able to come into play, to be able to give us the kind of outcomes that we're looking for. So I don't have all the answers regarding how to retain medical talent in Nigeria, but I think something at a level higher than mouth service ought to be done here for us to be able to get what we desire. It's a time bomb waiting to blow a lot of things up, and nobody will be saved. Because if you remember what happened during the COVID, we're all locked in, and the doctors were locked out, and we could see the casualties that happened. So I think we shouldn't wait for the next pandemic before we start to make the right investments in human resources for health. It's a very, very big problem.
Yeah, hopefully, from the way that it has been described, it might take a while before we get to a level where we can be, sustainable, to some extent, if there's a pandemic in the next couple of years. So I don't know if we're going to be ready. But I want to ask, same question, or just from the question my colleague just asked, why are you still here? Why haven't you joined the thousands and thousands of others who have left the shores of Nigeria to practice outside? And then also, what would be your recommendation if you would speak with the Minister for Health or even the Commissioner for Health in your state? What recommendations would you give, to see an immediate change in our story?
The recommendation that I would give to the Health Minister is for them to pay attention to the human resources for health. Not just doctors now, but the whole strata. Nobody has paid attention to this sector for very many years, and this is why the problems have always come from here. If you have manpower in place and you have the appropriate technology in place, the outcomes will be phenomenal. But when you don't have the adequate manpower in place, even if you make all the investments, it will end up coming to waste because you won't have people to manage, you won't have people to drive it, you won't have people to supervise it. So I think if they fix the human resource for healthcare, problem, which is a human resource problem, which has to do with incentives, which has to do with motivation, which has to do with training, which has to do with capacity, which has to do with investment. Another thing I'd like to say is that when we start producing medical consumables and medical equipment locally, we would be widening our skill gaps as local people. I'll give you an example. In the laboratories sector, prior to COVID, only about 50 Nigerian medical scientists knew how to operate molecular machines in the molecular lab. But all the tests for COVID were all molecular science and were all based on advanced technology. Today, we have thousands of medical laboratory scientists who have developed the skills, the capacity to be able to run molecular tests. So just before COVID, we're exporting a very large number of investigations outside the country. But with the arrival of COVID, sadly and not too badly, we had to survive, so we had to make the appropriate investment. So I think if we pay attention to the human resource for healthcare, it will go a very long way in solving the problem. And why have I not jackpot? Of us were born by Nigerians. And when I say Nigerians, I mean we saw our fathers labor for Nigeria. We saw our fathers try to build the infrastructure in Nigeria. We saw what our parents labored for to be able to put things in place. And I think they didn't finish the work. So for some of us, it's a duty, it's a passion, and it's a love for country that's keeping us here. And against all those as entrepreneurs, we're still pushing and giving our best. But we do need a lot of support. We do need a lot of support.
In response to that, we want to say thank you, Dr. Odolamu Jawando, not just for joining us on the show, but for still showing up regardless of all the challenges it takes to run a business and to be a medical professional in this country. So thank you, because we need you and the likes of you to still stay healthy. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thank you, and have a good day.
All right. Of course, moving on to all the conversations this morning, the Central Bank of Nigeria has increased the monetary policy rate by 200 basis points to 24.75% in a continued chase to tame inflationary pressures. According to the Monetary Policy Committee, MPC, to address Nigeria's food crisis, the authorities have to deal with the issue of food insecurity and implement federal government's agricultural intervention programs.
Speaking after the 296th meeting of the MPC yesterday in Abuja, CBN Governor Olayemi Cardozo said the committee also raised the cash reserve ration, CRR, to 100 plus to minus 300 basis. CBN also increased the interest rate by 400 basis points, taking the interest rate benchmark to 22.75% from 18.75%, a major tightening measure to tame Nigeria's high inflation, currently at 30.70%.
We believe that we are on the right course, and of course, one particular area of cheer as a result of the actions we have taken is the moderation in the foreign exchange rate, which you have seen. Now, don't take the foreign exchange in isolation, because it does have major pass-through to inflation. And to the extent that we've seen this happen, and we expect it will continue to moderate, we are confident that these tools and measures that the central bank is using will ensure that, the inflationary spiral will gradually.
To better understand this, let's bring in Alester Wilcox. He's an economist and the former chairman, ICANN Lagos and District Society. Good morning, Mr. Wilcox, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning for having me. It's always my pleasure. Thank you. I hope you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you clearly. All right. Please explain to us the impact of, this, the hike, the MPR hike on the FX rate and inflation. What does this mean in layman terms? It just sounds like a lot of economics. So can you please break it down, what it means and what this impact is on inflation and on foreign exchange?
Yeah. Unfortunately, because I'm not in the classroom, and I'll try as much as I can to break down the realities of the day. Now, in every economy, you have two kinds of policies, the monetary policy and the fiscal policy. Now, the monetary policy is what the CBN is always interested in, and it is in their purview to direct how, like you have money supply, interest rate, and all whatnot. They have the fiscal policy, which is mainly from the Ministry of Finance and other economic agencies that tries to intervene in one of them. Now, these two policies must have a formidable handshake for that to be a proper for that to be an alignment so that it can achieve the objective. Monetary policy, such as this interest rate hike, is part of stabilization measures. When I mean stabilization, like when you find in an economy where inflation is outstripping, it's galloping, we try to use some of these tools to moderate so that there will be less money. And it is assumed that when there is less money in the economy and you discourage borrowing and then try to put your money more in investable funds, that consumption will drop and then inflation obviously will drop. That is the arithmetic. That is the Bretton Woods. That is the Ikoyi. I mean, I will use some terms we are using now. That is the Ikoyi economic theory. But over time, and I have said this repeatedly, over time in Nigeria, monetary policy hardly works, hardly achieves its objective because we are a very, very funny economy in terms of even both at the corporate level and at the informal level. I mean, both formal and informal sector. Now, the factors that affect consumption, that affect inflation, that affect money supply, have little or no bearance to the everyday economy. Yes, it's good to play by the books, but you must understand the reality of your environment. And there's somebody that correctly said that while they do the Minister of Finance and the Cardoso and the Onyema Cardoso, well-trained economists, very, very fast, very sound in their thinking and reasoning, but these are equally trained economists operating in Onikman economy. Now, what is the difference? Out there, it is how the book says it. But down here, it is the rule of the jungle. And so, when I see CBN, and I've said this, like I said, I've said this over time, we must address the non-economic factors that affect our life. And unfortunately, policymakers are not addressing it. Because the truth of the matter is, when they grab economy, that's what I'm saying, it is like the Shomolu or the economy. When they grab economy, economic factors do not determine economic policy, economic reasoning and policy. Now, the last one they did, the last MPRO meeting they did last month, created, instead of dampening or halting back inflation, created more inflation. I can give you the statistics. Prices of goods and services went up by almost 10 to 12% across sectors, across board, simply because of that policy. Now, Nigeria today, they will tell you everything they will target to dollar price.
But they'll tell you, Mr. Wilcox, in reaction to that, some would argue that it was just a momentary spike, that FX spiked to 1,800 and eventually found its level.
It's not like I'm saying, we're operating, and permit me to use those words, we're operating in a 5-day kind of economy where we have this dog situation. Now, for instance, and I quarrel with the government because anything that goes up in Nigeria does not come down. Rather, there will be new reasons for it to go up.
Yeah.
Now, even if it's going to come down, the magnitude of hike vis-a-vis the magnitude of fall is in fact very insignificant. Because you keep hearing other, and that's why I talked about the non-economic factors. And policymakers are not looking at it. Now, Cardoso and Edu operated well in Lagos because it's a microeconomy of the macrocosm. Now they're operating at the bigger stage. And what works in Lagos when they were there in terms of, because they don't have access to, but they don't have a direct impact on monetary policy. So they're able to manage the domestic economy of Lagos and also prosperity of Lagos. That is quite different from what you find in the national state. And that's why I said they don't take into account those non-economic factors. Let me give you a reason. When in January and February the dollar was skyrocketing, what did you get in the market? Now compare the price index of January to the price index of March. Now, as at the middle of March, there was a policy intervention. There was the kind of intervention that the president have intervened, which I have cried out for ever since. They intervened, brought Binance bring some sanity to Binance, and today we saw the dollar was diving. After yesterday, we are at the official rate from 1,430 that the government was using to 1,200. Now, when that spike was going on, what was happening to price of goods and services? Every day skyrocketing, to the point that even domestically produced goods, agricultural products, and all whatnot, and when you have to say it is the dollar. So these are not economic factors, not economic factors that have to do with the economy. And that is why I said they are not taking into account those economic factors. And so when they allow certain things to go, when they allow certain things to happen, and then it becomes difficult to reverse, because they will not reverse it, because the Nigerian man, both at the corporate level, both at the formal and informal sector, is first and foremost an opportunist.
Yeah, all right. Mr. Wilcox.
Let me say this. So when there was interest rate hike, I went to Total. I campaigned for it. I was happy. I said, this is the economic reason. In fact, I was campaigning and asking people to go and invest their money in treasury bills and all whatnot. Then how did the market react? The market reacts by price increase of goods and services. Things like let me not give any brand a free advert. Things like this table water, soft drink. You see the spike from what it was to what it was just within a space of 1 month. I mean, you consume, because everybody believes that with that policy they will tell you that borrowing cost has gone up, which is not supposed to be. Yes, it's supposed to go up, but the measure is termed to discourage certain things. But the Nigerian factor weighs in, and even the cost of table water, seaway water, and everything went up. The beverages, just you name it. And it is because they will tell you borrowing cost has gone up. The CBI has increased interest rates.
Yeah.
So these are the non-economic factors that do not make this. So that I said, when someone called, I said, I don't know why the central bank is not acting. In fact, it's not getting the mood at the moment, because the truth of the matter is inflation is still on the rise. And if you take a miracle, I believe, I'm telling you, a miracle for there to be a nosedive of it in every sphere, even Gary, if you take a miracle.
Yeah, Mr. Wilcox, in I think it was in May 2023, the former CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, also did the same increase in interest rate. He increased it, I think, to 18.5%, May 2023. You know, of course, with the same aim of taming inflation. It didn't seem to work. Now we're talking about 24.75%. It feels like it's the same approach, you know, that is being taken here. Do they not just understand, you know, what you've, you know, explained now about the difference between their policies and what the reality is on ground? And also, how, in non-economic terms, in the most, you know, layman terms as possible, how does this affect SMEs across Nigeria?
Look, I have laid the foundation. Both SME and the whatever is the same market we're operating. Now, there are two things. There are those that genuinely need funds, need funds for businesses. Their costs will go up, certainly. And the ripple effect will be the fact that there's prices will certainly, those costs will certainly be passed on to the consumer. If it is in a sane economy, some costs can be absorbed. That is the truth of the matter. And when in the countries where these policies are used, we saw the resultant effect. Now, the UK has tamed the economy, their inflation back to about 4%. Through this policy, because it's a market that is driven by fair competition, that is driven by good buying decisions, by people understanding, that is everyday man understanding the effect of consumption and investment and abstinence. That is that kind of economy. So it works. I mean, from about 0.5% MRR, the UK now has about 5-point-something%. So it might be the basis point. So in such times where there are sound economic principles and where the people and where competition is fair, where the people understand the dynamics between consumption and investment, yes, it could work in the long run. Now, you just mentioned it. Emefiele did it, and what did Emefiele do? After pumping about 23 trillion in his ill-conceived ways and means, I don't understand the rationale into the economy, overinflation, liquidify the economy, and then he's now bringing in monetary interest rate policy to mop it up. How? When our consumption pattern does not flow that way. So for the SME, it don't affect them because cost of funds will go up. Now, people are complaining that their warehouse is stocked with goods. How can your warehouse not be stocked with goods when every day you are passing even the cost of storage? You are not bringing down prices so that people can buy and clear your warehouse. You stocking your warehouse with more goods. So why would it happen? Why would you have cloth? And then somebody say the company is leaving Nigeria because your pricing model is so astronomical. It's so way out. So you go to the market, like I said, the last month MPI, and I'm expecting a new price regime on goods and services with this announcement. Even if it does not come to effect, even though there's no borrow funds, even though they're not going to borrow new funds, they will tell you borrowing cost has gone up. They're not talking about the investment gain they are going to make. Because most people now put their money in investable funds, in TB, in other investable funds. They will not tell you the effect of that would be on the influence on their businesses. No, but they will look at the cost that they anticipated to do, and then they'll begin to change and moderate price. It does not work. So SMEs are in trouble because they will not be able to compete. And that's why you see today a lot of little businesses, even though in their own right too, they are not doing the right thing, but SMEs should be able to have a target market. SMEs should be able to know how to model their cost structure. There's too much wastages, even in the corporate world. There's too much wastages. And there's too much, there's too much profiteering tendencies. So even what you can absorb, a cost you can absorb, you want to pass it on to the consumer. And so that you can have a wider income level. I will call it, I will say it's business. I've been in the business world for too long to know some of these cost structures. People just want to kill the next man because we call it a free market. And government policies that is aimed to tame those tendencies do not work because even the consumer is not a rational consumer. You know, one should expect that by now certain goods should no longer enjoy the high level patronage. But for where? You find people, you find the clothes filled, you find the bags filled, you to capacity, and people tell you after what we will do, we will eat now. You know, and so because the Nigerian businesses knows this very well, they have mastered the people's behavior. Consumer behavior is very key in anything that you are doing. Consumer behavior. And if you don't have that kind of behavior, we will eat now. People will go eat. I mean, you see people, they say rice is 80,000 naira, and people are still throwing parties and closing the roads, and they will cook eight different kinds of rice, and for everybody, so that you know. And when you ask the question, we will eat now, we will survive. Nothing happens, and because people know the consumer behavior, and so they can do anything just to scrap it from you, and then blame it on government. And government good policy works in other economies. Is only doing what aggravating. And until government policymakers begin to understand those non-economic factors that drives our behavior, drives our market, of course, we'll just be roaming in the dark.
So what changes are you expecting to see? The next Monetary Policy Committee meeting is in May 2024. It's scheduled to happen in May. What changes do you expect to see before then? And maybe as a result of the next meeting, do you think that they would then review the current policy and decide to do something different? Maybe they would have observed customer behavior, consumer behavior, like you said. Well, what changes are you expecting to see by the next meeting?
I'm not expecting any change, as a matter of fact. Since, like I said, it takes a miracle. Because the people that work in CBN, they are not, unfortunately, they are not influenced from the society. And the policy is not just taken by the bank chiefs and the governor central bank and the deputy. So there are a lot of input from MBS, that's the National Bureau of Statistics, and that is one of the most irresponsible organizations in Nigeria because they come up with outdated numbers. They come up with outdated numbers, and as such, policymakers are not being able. And like I said, the gamut of governance architecture cuts across from down to up. And so where is the information coming from? Statistical information coming from? It comes from the bureaucracy. So those that work in CBN, those that provide the data, the banks. Unfortunately, the bourgeois are those ruling. Those who felt it doesn't affect them, nothing happens to them. They are insulated from the common man on the street. So I'm not expecting anything too different. But like I said, it will be a miracle. Let me pray and hope that I'm wrong. But I know that in the past I've not been wrong. Let me just hope and pray that I'm wrong, because I am eagerly worried as to how the common man on the feet, how the common man gets by in this country.
It's even scary now. You know what's scary is how, I mean, like you've mentioned, what goes up doesn't come down. Now we're counting down towards the Easter celebration, and of course, the prices of goods and services will be hiked again, and maybe it wouldn't come down after that.
Has gone up.
It's quite scary.
Without any increase in fuel or transport has gone up, just because it is the first. So you can see the kind of.
Yeah.
So there must be some form of physical intervention. Now, government needs to have direct intervention with process of goods and services. Now, of course, the CBN should look at a way of rolling back some of these MRO that they ill-advisedly taking us to, because, like I said, it works in good climate. It is a good economic policy.
Right.
It is the part of the breastfeeding system. But in our country, it's like a dog eat dog. So there must be some government direct intervention with Manufacturing Association of Nigeria. They are one of the culprits. NASIMA, National Association of Chambers of Commerce. Look, when folks affect their members, they all rise up in arm against the government.
All right.
When their members are the ones that are killing the people, they are all smiling and be happy. So there is intervention with them.
We need to go now. Yes, we need to go now. Thank you so much for highlighting these points and calling these organizations out. We can only hope for the best, and we look forward to seeing some positive change. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Wilcox.
Let's hope and not just hope. Let's hope and work directly and get results. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Have a good day. Now let's move away to Kaduna, where we have updates regarding the release of the 137 kidnapped schoolgirls. We have updates from our correspondents in Kaduna. We have Marvelous Ogbonmwan joining us to give us updates. Good morning, Marvelous. What's the update regarding the schoolgirls, and have they been able to see their parents yet?
Yeah, good morning. You're aware that on Monday, the military handed over these 137 released school children to the governor. And then during that handovers on Monday, we were unable to cite any parent around. Those that were available at that moment was just the government officials, the heads of security agencies in Kaduna State, media organizations. Those are the people present on ground during the handover. And then the military handed over to the governor physically 131 students, then saying that the remaining 6 were still undergoing medical care at their facility. Now, let me just highlight some of the gray areas. During that particular handover, no parent was on ground to authenticate that, yes, these children that were rescued were the original students that were abducted from Kuriga. So that authentication was not done. So these parents are the only ones who know their children, to know if their children, all of them were rescued or not. So the parents were not on ground. And as yesterday, we were hearing that the governor will have a banquet with the parents and then the students. But at the end of the day, we hear that the parents were not even around during that banquet. It was just the government officials and the students. After which they say the students are now going for a therapeutic session for rehabilitation, more or less like a chemotherapy for them. But then you will now ask yourself, these children are minors. Even from the document we saw that the military brought out, the age bracket we saw was 12, 13, 14, 15, and I think the highest I saw was about 16. So these children are still minors. None of them were up to the age of 18 years. So the question is, should the government, take these children for medical examination without the consent of their parents, who were not even on ground? Just like I informed us yesterday, one of the parents I spoke with was even asking if the children have been handed over to the government, and when will the government allow them to see their children? That was what one of the parents was asking us. So I can confirm to you now, even as I'm talking to you now, we are not sure if these parents have seen their children, and to authenticate if these children that were kidnapped were those originally abducted from LEA Primary School, Kuriga. That is one. Another gray area is the fact that we are still having discrepancy in that figure. Remember, even as on Sunday morning when the governor released a statement, he alluded that the children that were kidnapped was 287. just I think about 4 hours later, the military now released a statement that the children they released were just 137. In fact, if these children were really 137, in the last 3 weeks, the figure that the media has been given is 287. The governor, in fact, made a brazen statement that what the media was reporting was not accurate. It was an insult on us because since this incident happened, what we've been reporting was 287, according to the data that was given us at Kuriga, and him too was saying that it was 287, which was contained in his original statement. Now saying that what the media was reporting was accurate and not, I think is unconfounded. And now even the teachers in the school said it was 287. Now later we are now hiring a different figure. Now lastly, the military said it was a kinetic and non-kinetic approach that was used to rescue these children. Now, they didn't give us specific details on that rescue operation. We didn't know how many bandits were neutralized, how many bandits were apprehended. These are the information people want to know because the government has come to tell us that they will not negotiate with bandits, they will not pay ransom. Yes, we are aware. But then, if it is a rescue operation, we should at least get specific because many people, I can tell you, many people we've spoken with so far are saying that they are not even sure if it was a rescue operation, that it could be that the non-kinetic approach that the military was saying, probably it would have been a negotiation or so. Because we need specific, if you give us this specific, the public can now trust that yes, indeed, it was a rescue operation. So these are some of the gray areas that are seriously pleading for, answers.
Yeah, marvelous. I mean, a lot of issues, you've raised, and you're not the only one who's saying these things. It's shocking. I think for me, one of the most shocking parts is the part where the parents have not even seen their kids. How do you have my child kidnapped for 3 weeks? And then when the child is now reportedly released, I can't even see that child. And you're having a banquet, whining and dining with other government officials without the parents of those children.
It's very.
It's just not making any sense. There's many things that just don't add up with the whole story, right from the kidnapping to their release. Questions also about these fabric. Is there a tailor that is always on ground once there is about to be a release that takes measurements, sews these things for them, or do they have someone who does mass production of these fabrics for these children to before they are received by government? What exactly is going on?
Seriously, your gaze is almost the same gaze as mine. Look at how they were all dressed. They were new footwear they were wearing. They were new fabrics. And you now ask yourself, within that Sunday, when they arrived Kaduna, I think around, say, after 4 to 5, and then as at Monday around 1 o'clock, that was the exact time they arrived the government house. You now ask yourself, how were these fabrics sewn? How did they get their sizes accurate enough that all of them were wearing, what the tailor sewed for them? Or is it that the fabrics are already on ground? Your guess is as good as mine. And then one thing is that in that official handover, we don't know why the parents are not on ground, because the parents need to be on ground. They are the ones who authenticate that these children we are seeing their faces is our children, because you never can tell. Probably during the rescue operation, as the military are saying, they must have rescued other children whom were not, abducted from Kurigaya, and probably they will not know if they are from Kuriga or not, because they don't even have the power to say that. It is only the parents that can say, yes, this person sitting down here is my child. And the other parent will say, no, I have not seen my child. So for them not to be there on ground is what we still don't understand. And these children have spent 16 days in captivity. Their parents are passionately waiting to see their faces. Now they've been released and they are unable to see their children. So these are some of the issues we're having here to contend with.
I don't think that there's any better way to put it. It is very irresponsible behavior that these children have been released, have not yet been reunited with their parents, and we don't even know exactly, like Marvelous, our correspondent has mentioned, we don't even know what the actual number is of the children that have been released. And more importantly, you know that when it comes to issues of showing children on television, you need their consent, you need their parents' consent. If these children are younger than 18, why do we feel the need to keep showing them on television without even having had them, speak with their parents or spend some time with their parents? So many questions that need answers, and I'm hoping that the government will step up and give us the answers that we need. Marvelous Ogbonmwan, thank you very much. We hope to get more updates, and hopefully the next time we speak with you, these children will have reunited with their parents. because it's very embarrassing, to
We
put
hope
it
so.
mildly.
We hope so. We hope so. We really do hope so.
All right. Thanks a lot, Marvelous. Stay safe. We'll speak with you pretty soon.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. Let's take you through the papers this morning. And joining us to review the big stories is public affairs analyst Sheson Okwade. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Olive. Good morning, Osarogie. It's a great pleasure to be here this morning.
It's great to have you as well.
I wish certain things behind the scene are actually our viewers we just like,
You're gonna have to stay for Jasiri for that.
Actually, that's Jasiri-worthy content. And you tune into Jasiri from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Yeah. But let's share with you what the big stories are saying this morning. We're starting off with this Nigerian newspaper. And on the front page of this Nigerian newspaper, the big story is banditry, Zamfara under siege, Governor Lawal cries out. Rushes to presidential villa, tells Tinubu northern Nigeria heading for crisis if nothing is done. Oh, wow, President Tinubu didn't know already. No, I'm just... We've curbed kidnap of students in Borno, according to Zulum. Okay. Why we need more Indian investors in FCT, according to Wiki. Oh, I miss on Wiki. I haven't heard of his drama and antics in a while. It's been such a long time. Kano court sentences Chinese to death for killing girlfriend. Oh my goodness.
I remember that story.
This is that story.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Justice at last.
Yes, indeed. Omehia was never governor. Rivers court rules. CBN raises interest rate to 24.75 as money supply hits historic 95.56 trillion in February. Army invaded, destroyed my homes in Kiagbodo, Ugeli over Okuama massacre. Clark laments. Delta massacre, slaying soldiers for burial today. That's a really sad one. So let's start with the story about banditry with Governor Lawal running to the FCT to notify the president, and then with Zulum saying that they've curbed kidnapping in Borno.
Thank you very much, Olive. I keep asking myself, maybe we'll start engaging some of our governors in this Olympic and some athletics game. Every minute you run to the president, every minute you run to the president about the level of insecurity in your state. But I love the other rider, Zulum, coming out to say we were able to curb this act in my state. So that gives us the right to say, some governors are out there, you know, with the idea of things to do. Some are still in that knowledge of is in the hands of the federal government. I'm sure I think 2 or 3 weeks ago we heard about the move of this state policing coming to forefront for discussion, and it's part of what we've been saying. It's high time we start holding these governors accountable. I know, and I know it still exists. Security votes are paid to state governors, of which I know those days it used to be an issue between governor and some leaders in their areas. So you cannot be a CSO of a state and all you do is to run to the federal government for assistance. What are they assisting you with? You have a police officer in there. Some of them, even in that area, they have military base that you can have engagement with. Engage them first. Let them even be asking for permission from their organs at the central. Why we put so much pressure to say diffuse this power from the top to the state and even to the local government. It's on that basis you can start holding them accountable for this their wrongdoing. Enough of always running. I ask myself, okay, you've run down to the president to do what? To come to your state and assist you when you, part of the things you promise the state people is that you are going to protect them, because one of the cardinal duty of the governor is to provide security and good welfare for the state indigent. So people must start thinking out of box. We've seen certain state governors, moving into equipping their vigilante group or neighborhood watch, name it, in the state to see how to fortify. Even if you are not carrying gun, we've said it, security, the first thing you need is information. If you don't have information, if you have the best equipment in the world, if you don't have information, you will misuse it. You can imagine you are eating right when the war is coming from left. And the only way you can have that is by information. So first thing they should try as much as possible to do is to possibly have, annex of security apparatus in their state that can provide information to the security agency owned by the federal government. And if they are now failing to act on some of the intelligence gathering or information gathered, then we can start asking the federal government to see this is enough. I'm sure if you go to the western region, you see how the Amotekun that was formed then provide information and how they are being empowered to make sure that areas are secured. I think it's high time the federal government should be considering this issue of state policing so that we can have minimal concentration and minimal, state governors running to the president at every instant that they have insecurity in their state.
Yeah, might also just be a clear sign of incompetence and failure to, actually handle the affairs of your state.
Yeah, it's riding on it that, the whole security architecture is in the hands of the federal government. Yeah. But at the same time, you need to think outside the box because we've seen a lot of states, coming out to see how they can secure their area. Because the truth is, I keep saying it, if your environment is not secure, there is no how prosperity can happen there. You can't grow.
Because the truth is, God forbid, right? And I'm saying God forbid because that's not what we're praying for. The life of every average Nigerian is important, of the average Nigerian, I beg your pardon. But if these so-called governors had their families under attack, they would not think of running to the presidency. If the families were under a security threat, their first point of call would be to figure out how to protect their family members immediately, rather than running to the presidency to look for an alternative.
You are saying when they are under siege. Do you know how so many of them fortify the security around their family members? Not even immediate, because they know the implication that if anything happens, so much will be demanded. So why can't you prioritize other citizens? Exactly. Make them to be your... In fact, once you are a leader, everybody is your family member. Because whatever happens to them, you are all accountable for some of those things.
And what is the extra information he needs to go and show Mr. President? Is this saying that Mr. President is not aware of what's going on?
Exactly.
Is this saying that Mr. President, who is, the commander-in-chief, is not aware, doesn't have his current information, on what is going on?
I can even say, okay, let's even put it that the president is not aware, but you are directly involved in what is going on. And all you need is, I don't know why we have to go to Abuja. These days, there are very fantastic way that you can go ahead and do rather than going to Abuja. A phone call today. I'm sure they all have hotlines that the president will always speak. And in case of emergency, before you fly,
like why do you need to? We need to actually stop that. All the money they are spending, because even running to Abuja,
it's at cost.
Exactly.
Again,
it's
probably
taxpayers'
just
money.
for me, just showing incompetence. Because if you can't figure out these things that we're talking about now, that you can basically you have a Zoom meeting with the president,
with Mr. President,
with head of security agencies, with anybody else, you need to fly to the president to go and greet him and
we are all complaining that the money is not there.
There's the same thing. I think I spoke about this before, where we have this father of the nation tag that we give to the president.
Savior of the
even as father of the nation, a child, if you have a child that wants to kill you when you are supposed to be independent, at the time the father will abandon you. So this idea of running to the president, it will get to a period, you will call Mr. President, even for urgent thing. You say, who is that? Olive. Tell him I'm not available till next week. And that thing is because Mr. President is used to you coming to overburden, him with things you should. So I count it to be overburdened. Because there are other things he himself is facing. And you are there as the chief CSO of the state. You should be able to be creative enough. And I love the response of Zulum. Zulum used to be under serious attack. He's been attacked for more than 2-3 times. But if you go to Borno these days, there are a lot of developments that are actually springing up in that area. And you ask yourself, this was once a Boko Haram territory, but people are living in safety and growth is happening there. I think when they meet as governors, they should discuss, some of the ideas they are all having to make their state to grow rather than...
Northern Governors Forum. I wonder what kind of conversations they have.
If Zulum can be telling you that, so you are saying that the Northern, you are now putting it together. You are not saying your state now. You said the president needs to address issue in the Northern region.
Kaduna is our priority right now.
All right, let's move to Daily Trust newspaper. So I think there's a couple other things that we're going to come back to. On the Daily Trust, 60 hours after, Kuriga students yet to reunite with their families. We are eager to have them back home, say the parents. They're undergoing psychotherapy, says government.
Wahala.
Submission of 2 lists responsible for 287 figures, says a resident. Bandits kingpin, yellow jambros behind abduction. Okay. We must treat kidnappers as terrorists, says President Tinubu. 17 slain soldiers for burial in Abuja today. Kano government nominates Kwankwaso's son, sacked commissioner for cabinet appointment. And also, amid soaring inflation, CBN raises benchmark lending rate to 24.7%. IPOB funding terrorism through sports betting platforms and crowdfunding, says the federal government. I don't even know if that's a story we should bother with. It's so ridiculous. Chinese sentenced to death for killing Nigerian girlfriend in Kano. And also, Gumi says, I discuss how to curb banditry with security agencies. All right. Now, let's speak about Kuriga students. We had our correspondent in Kaduna this morning join us just a few minutes before we start off the newspapers. And he, of course, said once again, that the parents have continued to complain that hours or days, rather, after these students or these pupils were allegedly rescued and, brought back from captivity, the report, of course, says that they were taken to Zamfara State.
Yes, so Zamfara back to Kaduna, 10 hours.
Back to Kaduna. They have, of course, met with government. The government has had, photo shoots, numerous photo shoots with them. But the parents have still not been reunited with their kids. And there's just a lot of things that look, off with the whole theatrics concerning this, the release of these young ones. Also with the fact that the whole dressing up, of these kids to meet with the governor. Too many things just seem to be, to be off. So quickly speak about this. Why have the parents not yet reunited with the children?
First and foremost, I try to manage the information on the part, say, the first move to Zamfara. The same states we just spoke about of high level of insecurity, crying for before coming to Kaduna.
No, they were kidnapped and taken to Zamfara.
Okay, I'm still trying to find a way around, but no problem. On the issue of reuniting with the family, I'm sure I have said it times with that number, because we are not proactive with issues. When issues happen, we see it as an avenue to enrich certain set of people. I saw those pupils when they were brought to the governor. Somebody needs to make those clothes overnight, and you just have to do it. If you have invited the parents to even come with clothes, rather than wasting the resources of the state again, those clothes, it's like you are sewing uniform for them, or they bring their school uniforms, which they have at home, and get those things. We need to manage our resources. Each time we keep complaining, but when you look at the way and manner some of these funds have been, expended, you ask yourself so many questions. And on the part of not reuniting with the family, sincerely speaking, is what bothers me. Each time they come, I think it was last year we were saying it, that I don't celebrate when they say we've been able to rescue or they returned them. The psychological trauma you have put these pupils, these students, these children through, will live long with them. Don't forget, I keep saying it. You see, they are at their formative stage, and they would have seen several things where they've been to. Some of them might end up to say, I think this banditry and kidnapping might be the route I need to go if I get up. Because it seems look at the way some of them are living, even while we were with them in hostage. You can't take that out, and you can't know that is developing in the child, in the brain of a child. Until when you start manifesting certain things, you say, what do you want to be? Because they don't worry. I already figure out what I want to be in future, but I won't tell, because mentioning it to you might be another thing. So can we have a preventive measure in such a way that this will not happen? Because you can imagine if out of 180 something claimed by the government that those are the people that were adopted and released without anyone being left behind, even if it is 2 of them that later at the back of their mind to venture into that act because of their experience that they've had while they were being adopted. How do you manage that?
Also, another area that, we did talk about at the start of the show is how when this news broke, 207 was the official number that was being projected. How is it that at the point of rescue, which is weeks later, we're hearing that, it's not 207, it's 137. So what happened to the remaining 150? And then they say it was a mistake by the media. Why was that mistake not corrected at the point when this kidnap had happened, at least within the first 2 to 3 days where numbers and verification was being done? Why wasn't it being corrected? Why did it take them weeks? to come back and tell us. So what happened to the remaining 150 people?
Only verifying that may really not be easy. Why will I say
A
that?
whole 150.
Why will I say that? Do we have data? Do they know the number of children in the school? You see, there are certain things I look back and I ask myself questions. Even as governments, we cannot boastfully come out to say this is our figure.
Well, I think that one might not be as so complicated, to be honest, because all they need to really do is everybody in that community in Kuriga knows that there was a kidnap that happened in that school. Is to do a town, public service announcement.
We are not saying even community. We are saying the schools.
Exactly. All the parents that lost
the school should have a record.
Let's assume the school doesn't, because if you look at that school and you see the way the structure of the school is,
it doesn't matter.
That's not even a school in the first place.
In the first place. So I don't think that getting to find out the actual number of people of children that were kidnapped would have taken that.
So it's when you are actually releasing.
That's when
you now have the actual number
mistake.
of people being released, and these are part of the thing we keep saying. Reduce the level of trust deficit people will have in you when you carry out things. A lot, like we are discussing now, a lot of us are like asking questions. Is it worth it? Why does it have to take? You are saying duplication of list costs that 280 something. That is something that we should have responded to within 48 hours to say, excuse me, the verification confirms that. So it's an indictment on the government official. You don't need to blame the media, because media did their own investigation and that's what they got. You should be able to provide a counter report to say, no, that figures that you have placed that. Olive, let me just tell you, wake up now and make up a report that the president has expended 500 and something billion naira.
They will not only counter it.
Within
DSS will come and pick you.
So what are we now saying? So if we have machinery, when you speak to authority on certain things that are borders on their personal destiny, that we can have swift response. Where is the media aid to the governor of the state? Where is the PA, the SA, all the parliamentarian that works with the government in area of communication that should have provided the right information? Whether it's going to be an argument between you and the media, but at least it will be on record that within 48 hours you are able to, bring to bear that no, the figure you've given is wrong. This is the value. You are doing that when they have released, and now you are creating a trust, gap for people to be saying it is 280, you release, so we still have 150 something, and saying no. Where is even the list?
It's again, just like in Zamfara, this also once again shows, a lot of incompetence.
A lot.
And, also, a lack in value for, the Nigerian life. Because if every single life mattered in that school, you would have these figures would not be,
it won't be something.
Exactly. You would know every single person that is unaccounted for, and it will be, verified by the government, by the school. Every single person that's unaccounted for, every single name will be known. Every single family that is affected will be known. So it's a complete lack of value for the human life, and of course, for these students.
Yeah, I've said it again that until we start taking governance like a private sector people would do, I'm sure there are certain things that comes out in the private sector that you must verify the act. But when you think that you are in governance to just do it the way you are without anybody questioning you, these are the things we get. Well, quite disheartening, but they've left that in the art of Olive, myself, that, the figures you are giving to us, we still have some people in custody, because you should be able to refute such information within 48 hours with all the aids that you claim you have.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to our next paper very quickly and see what the front page of the paper, what the big stories are saying. Vanguard newspaper, Okuama, how government security bodies failed to rein in militant leader. And this is a Vanguard investigation that we probably need to look deeper into. Cooker to federal government, interrogate persons with ties to bandits. That's one of the stories there. And then there's some sub-stories. Kingmakers boycott meeting over Olubadan, designates absence. Mambila firm vows to deliver 3,050 megawatts hydropower project. We also have here, Nigeria can host Commonwealth Games successfully. I'm going to ask you what you think about that. We also have here, I think at the top of the paper, Omehia was never governor of Rivers, court rules. Ooh, interesting. Binance, collaboration with SEC, EFCC, NSA fruitful, according to the CBN governor. NSC president chairs Vanguard IWD as Okotete, Osafile, Ambrose Medebem, others attend. Banditry, Zamfara under siege, Governor Lawal tells Tinubu. CBN raises interest rate to 24.75, insists all verified FX backlog cleared. I want you to talk to us about the Binance situation with the Binance Exco, the Binance executive that, of course, escaped. Will I call it detention? Yeah, in some way. Here, CBN governor is saying that the collaboration with the SEC, EFCC, NSA is fruitful. Do they really have much to say at this point?
Yeah, I think what the CBN governor is referring to is after the tip-off on the certain activities that was happening with Binance, they had to have that collaboration with the SEC, EFCC, and NSA to see how they deeper into activities of that particular organization. And to them, I'm not part of it, even though we don't have the reports, but the head of the team, which is CBN governor, directly concerned with it, is telling us that their collaboration has been yielding positive fruit. If you ask me, I think we are seeing our dollars moving from 1,900 to 2,000 to about 1,350, even though we are not feeling the impact in the commodity pricing. And again, you heard about the increase in interest rates, which we business owners are considering as hampering hard on the growth and the development of it. But if you put it in line with the escape or the, I always say the release of the Binance ESCO, because for me, it didn't escape anything. When
Honestly,
you escape, you see the footprint of how you are struggled. This was more or less like a collaboration between the people that are, watching over
honestly,
him.
when I saw that headline that said collaboration with SEC, EFCC, that was the first thing my mind went to. That was it a collaborative escape? Collaborative effort for
the collaboration that we are getting from the SEC and CBN is to prone into the books of those people to see how they can get more fact and penalize them. But the one for the escape, some of us are still in doubt, to let us know that it shows how our security agency is a bit weak. But I don't consider it weak. When they want to work, they know how to work. So for the man, because this is involving, as CBN governor is talking on their path, I think the security agency should come out with a report. Because this issue of the escape of the man involves immigration, it involves the military personnel, the NSA themselves that are here. They must come up with a report to explain to the citizen at what point did we have the lapses.
He supposedly had his passport, so what passport did he fly with?
They said with Kenya. So how did you get to know that it was with Kenya passport? Then, you see, one thing I know about security, oddly, is that when you are under investigation, they flagged you. And that's the beauty of having a central database. Yeah. So once they flag, everybody is aware, whether at the airport. That's why you see most of the time. Remember, there was a time this former governor, of Bayelsa, tried to dress like this. We didn't hear the information that he dressed like. I'm sure he was even under protection, to the airport. Maybe the last person to even board that flight.
But the moment the passport is being scanned.
It's being scanned. You'll be able to know that, okay, this man is under, and you raise the alarm. But I'm sure they've actually carried out their, walk through to make sure that even the person on duty understand what is actually going on, and it's a function of just pass it and go. And that's why we are asking questions that we need a report. I think the president should be asking them. They need to provide a report of how it happens. By now, nobody is talking about how else we roll. The only thing we've heard is that those people that were actually watching over the base is under the custody of the military, and they are investigating them. But at the airport, how did it happen? Which airline? Who booked the flight? Or is it the guy is so powerful that he needs not to book a flight for him to escape out of the country? The flight was booked, investigation, or they are telling us that it's a private jet. Then where did that private jet landed for them to pick it up? There are questions that are asking for answers from our security personnel on this Binance man, because suddenly become a laughing stock. And when I heard that, we are now talking with the Interpol to bring him back. The Interpol will work and bring him back, but I always talk from the perspective of cost. That is something you should have prevented. Working with the Interpol is not for free. There is always a bilateral collaboration between you, but there are costs attached to some of these things. So why can't you tame it? So those ones we say, if you give him back to you, are you still going to protect him when you have every right to protect him, not to exchange? We should not make ourselves, a laughing stock. By now, I consider that X should be rolling rather than saying we want to carry out investigation, because it's not just only about NSA, and it shows how we give double standard. If it is a Nigerian, that this has happened to, we will not take him to a guest house. I'm sure it will be under the watch of DSS with those fortified military men, guiding him. For him to have even the luxury of having access to phone and also going for prayers at the nearest mosque, he gives so much to question, and I think that our security agency needs to work on it and provide answers for us.
All right. Let's quickly go to the Punch newspapers. There's a couple of stories that we could also share with you with the time that we have on the Punch this morning. CBN, EFCC probe banks, firms over alleged forex racketeering. It says also CBN implements Deloitte FX audit report. EFCC may sustain or summon CEOs over $2.4 billion invalid request. Several FX requests are fraudulent, made with invalid illegal documents, Cardoso insists. 6 missing and 2 are rescued as U.S. cargo ship destroys Baltimore Bridge. Really shocking incident in the United States. When, of course, those videos emerged, and I did tweet a quick challenge. Let's see, all right, which would happen fastest, the fixing of the Baltimore Bridge or any of the Nigerian government's projects.
Of course, it's most likely be Baltimore Bridge.
This is your bet. This is your bet.
Nigerian government projects, I believe in my
Which
country.
one now? Which of them now? Which of the refineries is going to come up?
At least we'll finish
the Third
Third
Mainland
Mainland
Bridge? Okay. Okay, we'll see. Slain soldiers for burial today. Military demands killers capture. Mom, others hail death sentence on Chinese for killing lover here in Nigeria. And also, on top of the Punch, Tinubu to vet Foreign Affairs Ministry's ambassadorial list. Unemployment responsible for rising banditry and kidnapping, says former President Olusegun Obasanjo. 24.75% interest rate. OPS fears higher inflation, massive job cuts. So let's have you quickly speak on the burial of the slain soldiers, and also maybe a little bit on the new interest rate of 24.75%.
Yeah, thank you very much. On the issue of the slain military men that are actually being buried today, we only say condolences to the family. Part of the things we implore the government to do is to see how we'll give good welfare to the families that they left behind, in such a way that they will not feel the vacuum that their parents. I'm sure some of them are breadwinners. They are not just a mere person. We have lieutenant colonel, they're major general. So they should just please look for a good package that will take care of the family, because a lot of mark will be left in their earth as they bury their loved ones today. And on the issue of the 24% interest rate, the organized private sector are raising things. This might lead to serious unemployment, because the operating cost of an average organization will be on the high side. So you see a lot of restructuring of loan based. The other time it's from 18 to 22, from 22 now to 24. And you see the cost of funds has its own impact on the production arm of the economy. So if the interest rate keep increasing, the bottom line is that it will impact on the growth of the economy, and which will lead to unemployment. And we can now link that to what Baba is saying. When your unemployment level, it increase the criminality level of the nation.
Okay. All right. Sheson Okumade, thank you very much for stopping by. Interesting points you've always raised, and we'd love to see you again.
Thank you very much for having me. Do have a very wonderful day.
Nadim Ajawala, one of the 2 Binance executives detained in Nigeria for alleged tax evasion and other offenses, has reportedly escaped from custody a few days ago. Recall that in February, the federal government detained the 2 senior executives of Binance amidst efforts by the government to rein in speculation on the naira by cracking down on cryptocurrency exchanges.
The charges against Binance include non-payment of value-added tax, company income tax, failure to file tax returns, and complicity in aiding customers to evade taxes through its platform. Anjawala reportedly escaped from the Abuja guest house where he and his colleague were being held after some guards on duty escorted him to prayers nearby at a mosque. The British national, who also holds Kenyan citizenship, is suspected to have departed Abuja via a Middle East airline. We're joined this morning by Dr. Uju Agomo. She's the Executive Director, Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action. Good morning, Dr. Agomo. Thank you very much for joining us. I would like you to share with us exactly what this, what picture this paints, the unfortunate incidents of the escape of this Binance executive. What picture does it paint of Nigeria's security architecture?
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for having me. I think the incident, just like I've heard a lot of people say, it really brings a lot of shame, but to the country, both in terms of the capacity of the country to deal with security issues, but again, it raises very critical factors around what we do regarding the places where we detain people and where we keep them in custody vis-a-vis across the board. So there are critical issues that raises, but it's one of shame. It is also one that speaks volumes negatively for the country as a whole and for the security sector as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, those are little details or aspects of, criminal justice system and, of course, prisons that need a lot of help or a lot of fixing. But, the whole idea of a person of his caliber just escaping and disappearing, is that even possible? From the way you've looked at it, is it possible for him to just randomly sneak out of the building, pass the back door, jump the fence, stop the nearest keke, head to the airport to get on a plane, and is that possible without help from within?
Now, I think basically because we don't know the full facts, because I believe that the investigation should be able to bring forth some of these facts, but it does raise a lot of issues, and these issues can really help us in terms of articulating how do we get ourselves to stop these spiral effects that we see. And please just note that, of course, this is not the first time we're hearing that there's been escape, but of this nature. So first is to talk about the places that people are kept. Okay, so how can how can such a person or indeed someone be kept in a facility that has not been officially, at least to the best of our knowledge, known as a designated custodial or detention facility? The law says it clearly. I think Section 9 of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act, the process why a place should be designated as a place as a custodial center. Now, well, from what I read, is that this is a guest house. So that also raises some issues. Secondly, you had asked the question about, will it not be that somebody have aided this process? So is it a question of negligence, or is it a question where there have been complicity? So it depends again as in terms of facts, and so, the facts that may come up. But that oftentimes it may be even a mixture of so many things. So I think that it is not it is not something right to have a situation where somebody escapes from a place of custody, the manner the person escaped, and also for the person to have the kind of time the person would have had to leave the country. So does it mean that the international passport the person used, because we're told the person went through the airport, as it were, from the information that being said, does it mean that that passport was with that person, or was it that somebody brought it to the person, or was it that the person had enough time to go to their house or wherever they kept the passport to take it? But I think that beyond these specific issues, there are very critical steps as a country that we need to take, and there are very critical questions we should ask ourselves. Okay, so the first is about the places where persons have been designated. as detention and correctional center? And what are the security requirements for such a place?
And I'm glad that you've talked about, these places that have been referred to as designated correctional facilities. If we go back to the Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's case, and when he was asking for bail, one of the reasons that the judge denied him bail was that, because he did ask to be transferred to Kuje prisons, and one of the reasons was that, they didn't trust the security architecture in Kuje prison. So, first of all, whilst Nigerians have raised eyebrows about the fact that this man was kept in a guest house, could this also maybe be the reason why he was kept in a guest house and maybe not taken to a different holding facility? And the second part of the question is, give us a picture. I mean, we already know what we see on social media, but you work with prisons and correctional facilities, prisoners rehabilitation and welfare action. Give us a picture of what security looks like in this so-called security, in these so-called detention centers.
Okay, thank you very much. So the very first thing I would want to say is that the Nigerian Correctional Service has the highest number of, or should, maybe I should say this, not why I'm qualifying this, and I will explain to you why I'm qualifying it. Should have the highest number of persons who are in custody, being that many of the persons there are people who are there for different reasons, including different durations, including some who are there who are lifers, who are going to be in those custody for life. Yeah. Now, and there are about 200 plus, 240 something, 46 or thereabout custodial centers across the country with different types and categories, including the satellite, which is the holding facility. Now, I want to clearly state that there are about 19 institutions in this country that can detain people. And this is a very big issue in the sense that even though they are detaining persons, we do not have a centralized place where we have clearly the number of persons that are detained at any particular time in the number of these agencies. And what are the requirements in terms of the law regarding how long they can keep people in that facility. And I think there's a need for us to come to this question, because even during the last Universal Periodic Review of Nigeria, and the two other ones before that, both in the second and the third cycle, plus the fourth cycle that Nigeria just went through recently, Nigeria has been told that you need to have a place whereby all of the persons who you have kept in custody should be known in terms of numbers, and these places should be known and open to independent agencies to be able to visit them, including, of course, the National Human Rights Commission, Legal Council, and civil society, and the rest of that. Now you ask the question, what is the security situation? Just on Friday, Wednesday last week, which I think was on the 20th, the National Assembly committees, and I think there were 5 committees. It was the House of Representatives Committee on Reformatory Institution, the Committee on Human Rights, Committee on Judiciary, Committee on Police, and I think Committee on Interior. They had an investigative hearing on 2 issues. Guess what those 2 issues were? One was on the congestion of custodial centers. The second was on the issue of Kuje escape, what's happened in the Kuje Correctional Center on the 5th of July 2022. Now, on the floor of the National Assembly, I did raise certain issues, and I would want to use this opportunity to raise those issues, because just like as I said, if we don't address this problem, we will keep hearing stories this way. And what is that? If you look at section 28 of the Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019, it has 3 major subsections, and it clearly tells you what needs to happen regarding securing the custodial facilities. That is not happening. So if we really mean well, we must do that. And part of the very first one talks about the security gadget, because if you have all of the things that is said in subsection 1 of that section 28, you will not have had the situation that we have where you have escapes in custodial centers. And by the way, part of the issue that was raised is that there were people who have been said to be investigated from the military and all that. And the people were asking, since 2022, what is the outcome of that? Because you see, if things happen and there is a sense of impunity, the next next moment is that it will not deter others who will be planning to go that path. So again, you cannot say that a place that is outside a custodial center is more safe than a place that is within a custodial center. There are reasons why that is the case. The reason is that there are safety mechanisms, and there are also mechanisms whereby intelligence can be collected from other inmates and all of that to be able to find out when there are indications that something may happen. And that is why when you talk about securing the facility, which is one issue, the second issue is which kind of inmates are put in which types of custodial centers. So now you will hear we have maximum security facility, medium security, but that is just a question of name. We need to be able to comply with that section 28 that I mentioned to you. And then when you look at the risks and needs of every inmate that comes in, clearly section 10 of that same Nigerian Correctional Service Act of 2019 clearly says that this should be happening. Now, when you do that needs and risk assessment, depending on the risks that a particular inmate indicates, you are able to now know which kind of correctional center to send that person, and that correctional center will have those gadgets that,
Dr. Ogbonmwan,
that
I
are
think
related
that
to the issue of that particular risk level.
Dr. Ogbonmwan, I think that there's so many questions that this situation has unearthed for us, and we're hoping that the right questions and the right answers will be preferred. We hear that ONSA has said that they would investigate Interpol. We're waiting to see how this eventually turns out, but we thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you also for having me. But I believe and I hope that this will make us wake up as a nation. Thank you.
I really do hope that it does. Now, as we do every morning on Breakfast Central, we ask key questions on which way Nigeria.
The release of 137 kidnapped children in Kaduna State is our focus on today's Which Way Nigeria. While the governor and members of his cabinet, along with security operatives, are celebrating and giving themselves kudos for the successful rescue of these young ones, this morning I'm saying thanks, but no thanks. No thanks, because what exactly is there to celebrate? What is all the fanfare about? What exactly in that situation demands pictures and smiles like we're at the Grammy Awards? Take a look at this clip, that of course, is from the Kaduna State Government House as the kids were released and brought into Government House all dressed like they were going, for a party or going for an award ceremony. There's pictures, of course, of the governor. You can see that, the governor meeting with kids and, members of the Government House and someone biting his nails behind there. And of course, there's also pictures of him being presented with, a list of names, from the military personnel. Now take a look at those faces. And can anybody tell me what there is in this situation to be taking pictures and, making poses for the camera for? What exactly in that very such situation necessitates all the fanfare that we see there? There are too many questions left unanswered. But before we even get to the questions, isn't it right to say that the first thing is that the government failed in its responsibility to protect those children? Isn't it right to say that at least the first steps, the security agencies failed the state and those children? So again, I say thanks, but no thanks. A situation where more than 130 children were kidnapped by terrorists. Bear in mind that we're still not certain if the actual number of victims is 138 or 287. So while we wait to confirm if there are still 150 people in captivity, are we saying that more than 100 children were kidnapped and taken away from Kaduna State all the way to Zamfara, a 10-hour journey according to reports? They spent about 16 days in captivity, were then somehow released, brought back 10 hours back to Kaduna State, and we're talking about, remember, it's kids we're talking about, barely even teenagers. And yet we're seeing those who failed these children giving themselves kudos for their rescue. Thanks again, but again, no thanks. Don't forget that in this situation, a teacher reportedly died. And so the government that failed to protect these children, failed to protect that teacher who has lost his or her life, and yet they're taking pictures like it's an award ceremony. Where has shame gone to in Nigeria? Where is the honor that we should have? And at least a little bit of shame. And I mean, why are we like this? In a normal society, shouldn't there be massive resignations across all these sectors, including in government house, for failing these children? And of course, who gets to answer for the loss of that teacher's life? Who gets to fix the trauma that those children have passed through in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks? And why should anyone who failed to prevent the kidnap fail to immediately respond minutes after they were taken, stop them from getting all the way to Zamfara, fail to show proof that the kidnappers have been neutralized or have been arrested or killed? Why should anyone who failed in all these aspects still have a job this morning while we're talking? And yet we're taking pictures. Are we even serious at all in Nigeria? We should continue to ask all these questions. And this morning we had Marvelous Ogbonmwan, who is still asking these questions in Kaduna State, our correspondent. But we should maintain this, these questions to the Kaduna State government and also to the government in Aso Rock until we get answers. But until then, thanks, but absolutely no thanks. Good morning, Nigerians.
A sad but very necessary note on which we will end today's show. We hope that we can have more answers to these very important questions that have been posed by the time we return tomorrow. I am Olive Emodi.
And I am Osarogie Ogbonmwan.